families, creating a lifetime of memories. Sadly, some families are denied these important moments due to the sad practice of alienation. These are families divided.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah today. I know it's been a tough day for many of you as you are alienated or estranged, and this time of the year is really hard. Please know that you've been in mine and Chester's thoughts and prayers today, and I pray that you'll stay strong and trust God through all of this. Tonight's episode, we're going to have Dr. Susan Heitler with us. In the mid-1950s through most of the 1960s, we used to love watching the highly popular TV show called To Tell the Truth. 4 celebrity guests had to guess which 2 of the 3 people seated in front of them were telling false narratives and which was the one telling the truth. The punchline came at the end of each show when the MC would say, with great drama, "Will the real John Johns," usually his or her actual name, "please stand up?" In today's talk, Dr. Susan Heitler suggests multiple ways to distinguish who was the actual alienator and who was a targeted parent. The talk begins by briefly reviewing the clinical labels and signs of someone whose psychopathology makes it likely that they could be an alienator perpetrator. The remainder of the talk explores how to diagnose a person who was unlikely to do alienation because of being a basically emotional, healthy person. Dr. Heitler clarifies the 4 qualities of emotional health summed up in the diagram she refers to as the circle of skills. She then goes on to share her 10 tips, that is, habits of people who exemplify personal well-being, who generally are most able to build positive relationship with others. Healthy individuals do not do parental alienation. So recognizing emotional health can enable a therapist, judge, friends, and family members to figure out which of the 2 parents is potentially an alienator and who is not. This is a great episode, and I'm sure you're going to get a lot out of it. So we're going to be right back with Dr. Susan Heitler right after this important message.
Divorce and co-parenting are a major life interruption for families, especially the kids, but also for parents and grandparents. And it's even worse in blame-filled, high-conflict cases. When parents engage in alienation by turning the kids against the other parent or grandparents, kids suffer. They're denied the opportunity to build the 4 big skills necessary for future resilience. New Ways for Families online class can help. Parents learn to use our popular biff and ear skills to calm the conflict and stop the hostile emails and texts. And we even have a class for kids and parents to learn together. Research shows a 75% improvement in joint parental decision-making after this course is taken, plus overall improvements for kids' well-being. Don't wait to make this affordable investment in your children's future and improve your well-being too. Start learning new ways for your family today at conflictplaybook.com.
Will the real Mr. X please stand up? That's how a TV program began, a TV program I loved and everybody loved when we were growing up. There'd be a panel of 4 people all pretending to be Mr. X. Contestants would have to ask questions to figure out who is the real Mr. X. Well, in this case, we don't have 4 panelists. We often have 2 people, one of whom is doing alienation, and one of whom is a very nice woman or very nice guy who's caught in false accusations and potentially could lose their children. Excuse me, I have a cold. I'm going to sniffle a little. So how did people tell who was the real Mr. X? So what's important for you is that you know how to tell, and what's important is judges know how to tell and relatives and friends know how to tell who is the real alienator and who is the person who's being falsely accused of bad behavior. One way to go about that is with labels. We can find the real alienator. Maybe in a way it should be fairly easy because there are three syndromes with clinical labels that pretty much always coexist in order for someone to turn against their ex and do something that's clearly harmful for their children. So one is borderline personality disorder. Second is narcissism. Third is sociopath. I'm not going to give you a long talk on those. I will say, though, that borderline personality disorder is mostly distinguished by tendency to flare up, quick flare-ups. It also is characterized by a willingness to change the story. So what actually happened and what the alienator says happened, they don't line up. The alienator pumps up the bad stuff, adds in a few false accusations. That brings us to the second and third clinical categories. The second is narcissism. Narcissism is it's all about me. So the alienator is doing what's good for him or her. It has nothing to do with what's good for the children. In addition, narcissists don't listen. So they're not listening to what the needs are of the children, never mind of their ex. Then the other category, sociopathy, is about willingness to lie. False accusations, whatever is useful. That's a clinical way of distinguishing who the real alienator is. Please stand up. There's another way to go about looking at who the real alienator is, and that's by looking at who's the actual healthy person. That's where I want to focus today, especially for those of you who are in alienating situations. It's very helpful, I hope, for you to have a reminder of what health looks like, what you can do to take care of yourself so you are and remain a healthy, emotionally healthy person. So I have two ways I'm going to go about suggesting that. Number one, I'm going to draw with you what I call the circle of skills. I just drew it. It's nothing very fancy. What do you see? There's a circle. I'll add one more thing. There's a circle with a heart in the middle and three areas around it. So the heart in the middle stands for, this is circle of skills. Draw it with me. Want to grab a pen or a pencil? Circle of skills. The heart stands for good, positive feelings, positivity. Let's see, can you see that clearly? I hope so. A healthy person gives out a lot of positivity. It's not a teeny heart. It may be a very big heart. Most of what comes out may be positive, or at least neutral. What doesn't come out is a lot of negatives. So what does positivity refer to? Smiles, warmth, appreciation, affection, admiration, gratitude. Those are all positive. Laughter, smiles especially. The other three skill areas that healthy people have, number one, emotional self-regulation. That's the opposite of what we said that people with borderline personalities have. Instead of quickly escalating and flying off like geysers into anger, or ding down into depression very easily. Mostly, though, it's anger that's characteristic here of people with borderline personality. And remember, anger does the opposite of positivity. It's sending out darts, arrows, bombs, missiles with each verbal statement, with facial expression, with tone of voice. By contrast, healthy people, here we could call this emotional self-regulation, they may feel angry from time to time, and they don't take it out on people. Emotional self-regulation. There we go. You can fill in your chart. So if they feel angry, they pause, they say to themselves some version of, anger is a stop sign. I need to stop. I need to quiet down, look around, understand what's going on here. Look both ways. Look at what I want. Look at what the other person wants. And figure out how to proceed. An alienator is more likely to pick up the stop sign and clobber people with it. A healthier person uses their anger to identify what it is they want they're not getting, or what are they getting that they don't want. Then a person who's healthy figures out a non-angry way, an effective way to get what they want. Okay, that's a big distinguishing factor. Second and third, what we call communication skills and conflict resolution. So communication and CR, I'm going to talk about it. Those are two skill sets that go hand in hand. Communication skills are the ability to say things in non-invasive, non-toxic ways. Invasive is signaled by using the word but. Excuse me, that's toxic. It's both. Let me back up. I think the cold is making my head fuzzy. The word you signals invasiveness. It's telling someone else what they think, what they should do. You. Healthy people start their sentences with I. Gee, I'm concerned about, I would like to. Not I would like you to. I would like to. They follow the rule of you can talk about yourself, your thoughts and feelings. Doesn't mean blabber all day about yourself. It means you can say what your thoughts and feelings and would like to do's are, or you can ask the other person. But there's no you think. With regard to conflict resolution, unhealthy people resolve conflicts quite easily by dominating. They get louder, they get more certain, they insist and persuade. My way, I'm right, you're wrong. That's unhealthy conflict resolution. Healthy conflict resolution, again, within emotional self-regulation, that means in a quiet way, and using safe communication patterns, I statements, asking questions, staying in a calm tone. With those good communication patterns, healthy people look to understand the concerns on both sides. They then look for a plan of action that works for both. I'll give you an example. Let's take Sam and Sandra. Sandra comes home from work in the early morning because she has a very difficult job. She just started working as, I don't know exactly what she does, but it's a nighttime job. And when she comes back, she's quite tired. She came storming into the room, the kitchen, where Sam was having a cup of coffee. Sam, you get the kids today. You got to take care of them. Oh, did you notice that you word? Sam says, I don't think I can. I have some very important meetings this morning and I have to leave in 5 minutes. You're going to take care of them. You are so selfish. You don't do anything. Ooh, can you hear the difference? It's not subtle. What would a healthy couple look like? Let's call them Barbara and Bernie. Barbara and Bernie face the same situation. Barbara comes in and she says to Bernie, "Oh, I'm so exhausted," an I statement. "I don't know how I'm going to get the kids up and bring them to preschool this morning. Oh, it just feels overwhelming." Bernie says, "Oh, I hear how exhausted you are." He's empathic. He gives caring and kind responses, sign of health. He says, "And at the same time, I have a meeting for this very important project I've been trying to get going for months. I don't see how I can possibly stay." They talk quietly for a few minutes. Bernie says then, "You know what? The meeting will take until about 10 or 10:30. If you can just hang in there, get the big kids to preschool and watch the baby for 2 hours, the little toddler, I'll come back and relieve you then." It's the best they could come up with. It's a solution in a kindly, mutual listening way. Quite a difference. Okay, so one way that our panel of experts who are sorting out who is the alienator and who is the alienated targeted parent is to look at those skill sets. Okay, we've talked about the clinical labels. We've talked about the 3 skill sets. Now the number is going to jump from 3 clinical labels and 3, it's actually 4 skill sets. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss positivity. That's the most important one. I have a set of 10 tips for personal well-being. They characterize people who are highly unlikely to ever become an alienator. They also characterize what you, if you're a targeted parent, can concentrate on doing so that the alienator doesn't get to ruin your life as well. Our panel will easily be able to see, I hope, who does these and who is doing something quite the opposite, not necessarily on all 10, for sure on some. I'll go through them with you, and I'm going to give you my email. It's Dr. Heitler, DrHeitler at Gmail. If you would like a copy of them, send me an email to that address, and I'm glad to send a copy to you. Okay, 10 tips for personal well-being and for enjoying loving relationships. Tip number 1. Oh, it overlaps with the circle of skills. Specialize in generating and sharing positive energy. Playfulness, loving, appreciation. The list I gave before. Tell me, can you tell the difference between positive and negative? You shouldn't have done that. It's obvious that's a negative one. Shoulds, you, tone of voice, negative energy. As opposed to, oh, how come you did that? Curiosity, interest, concern, totally different ballgame. So think about yourself for a minute now. Close your eyes for a second. I'll still be here. Picture over the last day how much positive energy you've been radiating and to whom. Could be acts of kindness, playfulness, enjoying someone's companionship. Note what moments stand out especially. And now, take a look at the moments where you've given out negative energy. How often has your voice sounded irritated, deprecating? Ugh. critical. Why did you do that? So we could say the goal is to have more positives than negatives. That's not my goal. Real emotional health, real maturity has virtually no giving of negative messages and a very high score on giving forth positivity. Something to think about. Okay, that was tip number 1. Specialize in generating and sharing positive energy, or at least neutral when you're just getting things done. Neutral is respectful and 0 negatives. Tip number 2, decide that you're going to be a problem solver. You know what? Life has bumps. I'm pointing to the bump on my hand. And as we go along the road of life, we hit bumps. I've talked about this on earlier talks I've given. When we hit a bump, a problem in life, like what Sam and Sandra hit, oh, they're both too exhausted to take care of their 3 young children. 2 need to be delivered to preschool. The 2-year-old needs to be watched. It takes a lot of energy. Get the kids up and dressed, oh my goodness, how are we going to get this done? So problem solvers really look at the how-to. What's the alternative to problem solving? Complaining, blaming. Whose fault is this? You shouldn't have. So specialize in problem solving. Sam and Sandra were actually quite clever. They realized, oh, I think there's enough clean clothes that Sam said, can run up into the kids' bedroom and just grab what they need to wear. So all you'll have to do is bring them downstairs. You don't even have to go up. If you sit them at the table, I'll even put food out on the table before I run out. I'll try to help as much as I can. I'm afraid I won't be here to wake them up. Oh, I have another idea. Sam's a problem solver. Sam said, when I go get their clothes, I'll wake them up and I'll make it a game to get them down. Hey kids, it's morning. Come on down. Who's going to be the first to go down and give mommy a hug? Whole different ballgame. He's looking for what he can do to be responsive to the problem of who's going to take care of the kids when you're exhausted and I'm running out the door. Point number 2, tip number 2, decide to be a problem solver and really look for solutions. You know, it's very funny. When I was in my clinical training for being a psychologist, I ran a therapy group with one of the other interns. He and I had a difficult conversation after one group's session because I was very uncomfortable about one thing that had happened in the group. I told him I was concerned about this that had happened and that and what could it mean. And then he did an amazing thing from my perspective. He said, oh, so what can each of us do about that? Now, I don't know in analyzing the problem why it never occurred to me to look at what could we do. That's problem solving. Now, men tend to err on the other side. Women are very good at analyzing a problem. And sometimes, like I did then, forget to say, okay, what can we do to fix it, to provide a solution? Men will tend to do the opposite. They'll tend to race to solution before they've gathered all the details. Sam was very good, though. He said, Sandra, let's just talk for a minute. What are the things that need to be done in the next half hour? Because maybe if we have a list of all of them, I could pitch in with some of them. So they were problem solving already. He was thinking, what can I do that will help? So number 2 is decide to be a problem solver. How can I fix this? Number 3, harness yourself to a project. harness yourself to a project. That sounds like strange recipe for being a happy, productive person. I learned this actually on a mountaintop in Pakistan, where my husband and I were sitting learning from a Sufi mystic. This mystic was an interesting man because, in addition to being just an extraordinary man of wisdom, he was an engineer. He was dean of the engineering school up in the mountains of Pakistan. He liked to say, cars run best uphill. When I first heard that, I was thinking, what is he talking about? As I thought about it, though, I think it's true. It's not only a matter of physics, it's that people do best when they're aiming for something, when they're trying to do something, when they're hitched or harnessed to a project. Now, unfortunately, if alienation is in your life, you do need to harness yourself to a project of seeing what you can do to unkidnap the children, to bring them back to you. At the same time, the flip is also true. I'll come back to that because it's number 10. For sure, though, make sure you have a project to hitch yourself to. Now, many people with alienation in the family do like Elaine Cobb, which was so wonderful. She said, I'm going to do something about this problem, not only just for me. I'm going to work with and gather together so many other parents. We're going to figure out what's needed to get this problem out in the public, understood, to get the courts to change, to get it so that people who are targeted parents get the help they need. She hitched herself to a project. That's a recipe for dealing with problems not only by looking at solutions, also by making a mission. Okay. Actually, neurobiologists have an explanation for why it's so important to hook yourself to a mission, a project. Yes, it does good things in the world, and that's important. What neurobiologists have discovered is that certain situations produce what my friend Loretta Bruning, Breuning, in her book about happy chemicals, she explains it very nicely, that certain situations trigger spurts of dopamine, adrenaline. These are neurochemicals that make energized or happy feelings, or stressed and negative feelings, some of them. For sure, dopamine is a happy chemical. You feel good when you're hitched to a project. Loretta's image of what spurts dopamine is a lion who's spotted the animal that it wants for lunch, that baby kangaroo, and it's carefully working its way in order to pounce. That's a model of having a project, being on the kill in this case, and it generates very positive, strong energy. So all of us who are involved with the parental alienation world, in one way or another, are working toward either getting our own child back or grandchild back, or working to educate people, change the courts, publicize the phenomenon, etc. That's hitching yourself to a project. Okay, harness yourself to a project was number 3. Number 4, learn from mistakes. A pair of mantras that are very helpful to say over and over again. Mistakes are for learning. Learn from mistakes. Mistakes are for learning. So if I look back at a mistake I made, I need to look back to learn. Mistakes are for learning. Look back, identify my mistakes, look back to learn, what am I going to do differently? Learn not only what was the mistakes, learn what might be in the next similar situation, what I could do differently. What's the alternative to that? The alienator doesn't look back to look at their own mistakes. They look out at others and point fingers. They look for who's to blame, who's to criticize. Very different. Look at myself to see my own mistakes. Mistakes are for learning. Look back to learn. Okay, that was number 4. Learn from mistakes. Number 5. See yourself and others in the best possible light. If Bernie and Barbara had been in Sam and Sandra's situation, Bernie would have said to himself, if both of them were problematic people, oh, she's always telling me what to do. She's so bossy. And Barbara would have been saying, oh, he always thinks that what he has to do is more important than what I have to do. Very negative thoughts about the other. Now I'm getting Sam and Sandra and Bernie and Barbara mixed up. That's what Sandra would have done, or Sam would have been focused on the negative. That's what alienators do. There was no alienating between Bernie and Barbara. To the contrary, when they looked at each other in that situation, she said to herself, oh, my husband is so competent at work. I'm so proud of this project that he's doing. When he looked at her, he would say, wow, my wife really wants to contribute financially, and taking on a nighttime job, she's my heroine. Whole different ballgame. Look at yourself also in the best possible light. That doesn't mean ignoring mistakes. It just means mistakes are specific behaviors. Myself as a person, I'm not going to put negative labels on me, like I'm not going to put negative labels on other people. I'll tell you a funny story. When my oldest daughter, started preschool, all of us mothers would stand by the door and watch the children. One of the mothers said, look at that girl in the corner there. She's so bossy. Negative label. Another mother said, I don't know. She is telling the other kids what to do. I have a hunch she's going to grow up to be a CEO of a large organization. So I've kept in touch with a lot of those parents. Guess what she grew up to become? You've got it. CEO of a large corporation. Okay, that was number 5. See yourself and others in the best possible light. Number 6, when somebody says something that you disagree with, find something you can agree with. This is one of those listening skills. If we go back to the circle of skills, right here, communication skills are not only how we say things, equally or more important is how we listen. So if we're listening for something we can agree with, then when I go outside and it's overwhelmingly hot, and my friend comes out and says, oh, what a beautiful day, I need to listen for something I can agree with. What could you agree with in that? Oh, the sky is so blue. And the green leaves, I'm pointing to my window, against that blue with the bright sunshine just look gorgeous. And then follow that with, and at the same time, I find the weather, the heat just overwhelming. It's really hard for me to appreciate all the beauty out there. So I'm glad you mentioned it because, oh, I get so hot. Yes, what you can agree with first and then add. I call it agree and then add, and at the same time. Here's another test. Somebody says to you, little babies are so cute. Well, you just saw someone's little baby that was really ugly. The face was it was a newborn, so the face was a little distorted and there was no hair and the eyes were squinting. It was not at all beautiful. How are you going to say yes to that? Yes, there's something so special about this new life. What a beautiful idea that it's the start of a whole new life. And at the same time, some newborns look kind of odd. Yes, agree. And then add. Okay, that's agree and add instead of disagree. Oh, here's the next one. This is a tough one and a very important one. If it's in the past, it's for the good. Now, if you're in an alienation situation and it's happened and it's in the past and still in the present, it's very hard to see how that could be for the good. That's your job, is to turn it into something that will be for good. That's what Elaine Cobb has done so beautifully. She's had her alienation situation, and she says, I'm going to make this life work in order to change this situation, hopefully for me, and even if it's not for me, for many other people. If it's in the past, if it's already happened, it's for the good, and your job is to figure out how to make it turn out for the good. Can be challenging, and that's a sign of somebody with what we call resilience. Resilience is one of the characteristics of someone who's a healthy personality, of mental health, as opposed to narcissistic, borderline, sociopathic. World of difference. So that was number 7. If it's in the past, it's for the good. Your job is to turn it for the good. Number 8, cherish your circle of friends and loved ones. Someone once said to me when I was in graduate school, and I remember it to this day, and graduate school was a long time ago. They said the quickest diagnostic test of how healthy a person is how many friends they have, friends and or family. So on their diagnostic sheet, they used to say, who are your closest friends? Or the question I had was, how many people would you say are your closest friends? The funniest case of that for me was I had a couple that had driven quite a distance to see me in my Denver office. I worked with him first and asked him, so tell me a little about your life. How many friends would you say you have? And he said, oh, about 200. And I thought, something's very odd here. 200? Okay, it made me so uncomfortable. I just went right on. Then I invited his wife to come in, and he stepped out for a bit and asked her, how many friends would you say you have? She said, oh, about 200. I thought, what is going on here? So I asked her, how can you have 200 friends? She said, we live in a rural community, a farming area. People think that people who live in rural areas are more isolated because our farms are each somewhat distant from each other. It's not true because we have events multiple times a year where we go and help each other out, fixing the roof, harvesting the crops. There's multiple activities on a farm that take a lot of people. We're there for each other. When we're there for each other, we talk, we laugh, we share sad stories. We're really connected. So I'd say there's about 200 people that I feel really close to. That kind of community is rare in our modern world, and probably even more rare the more people live in cities as opposed to small towns. Even if you're not in a situation where you have 200 close friends, really pay attention. Cherish your circle of loved ones and friends. Build your circle of loved ones and friends. That makes for a happier, emotionally healthier life. That's also often a sign of a more normal, healthy person as opposed to the alienators. My experience is that the alienators have a few people they're close to, and then they build coalitions because it's us against them. It's called splitting. They tend to, for instance, if you have someone who's borderline in your office and something's come up, the borderline is likely to gather everyone to their side, just like alienators, gather everyone the couple's ever known to their point of view. That's not quite the same as cherishing your friends, appreciating your friends, being kind to your friends. It's using your friends as your foot soldiers, sad and true. So for the panel trying to decide who's the alienator, it's important for them to ask not only how many friends, also to figure out what's the nature of the relationship. Are they there to be on your team? Or are they there because of some kind of mutual sharing, connecting, enjoying positivity? Okay, number 9, withhold the anger. We talked about that already. And let loose the laughter. People who can laugh together, that's special. People who can laugh, who smile. Oh, remember at the beginning, number 1 was about positivity? Laughter. Ooh. So the more laughter and enjoyment you put into your world, the healthier person you become, as opposed to either angry or stressed, worrying, depressed. Hey, aim for the sunshine. Want to add more in a quick way? Go outside. It's amazing how the greenery, if you're in a green, cheerful place, go to a park if you're in a city, can be so uplifting and give you more of a feeling of joy. Prayer also can do it. Oh, because a lot of prayer is just appreciation, joy. Doesn't exactly make laughter. And at the same time, appreciating gratitude are often at the foundation of healthy laughter. Because we're seeing what we like, what we enjoy when we laugh. Okay, that brings us to number 10. Enjoy life's pleasures. Nature, sunshine, good food, good friends, the children that you do have access to, neighbors. Consciously making it a point to enjoy life's pleasures. A warm bath. They don't have to be expensive pleasures. A terrific movie. A good book. Enjoy life's pleasures rather than focusing, as alienators tend to do, on getting back at or harming someone else. enjoy life and help others to enjoy it with you. So that's my suggestion for our panel of experts who are deciding, will the real alienator please stand up? And along with that, will the healthy folks wave and say hello and give us a big smile? Even though you face a terrible situation if you have alienating, you don't have to become a bitter, depressed person or an angry person. You'll be more effective if you let yourself, number 10, enjoy life's pleasure. And again, if you want a copy of this, just send me your email and the request for the 10 tips is what I call it. Dr. Heitler at gmail.com. And I want to end by thanking Elaine Cobb for bringing us all together.
Next week on Families Divided TV, Dr. Edward Kruk discusses the presumptions of responsible fatherhood.